She adjusted her crisp navy blazer as she entered the Galactic Council chamber, her polished heels clicking against the crystalline floor. The vast amphitheater buzzed with the usual cacophony of alien languages, translated into a harmonious symphony by the universal communication metrics. She nodded respectfully to the Zephyrian delegation, their gossamer wings shimmering in the artificial starlight that bathed the chamber. "Another day, another diplomatic dance," muttered Commander Marcus Chun, Elena's military liaison, as he settled into the human delegation's modest seating area. His dress uniform was immaculate, medals catching the light, but his eyes held this weariness of someone who had watched too many conflicts, resolved through endless committees rather than decisive action. Dr. Sarah Kim, the delegation's xenobiologist and cultural advisor, reviewed her tablet one final time. The Krolek Empire is pushing their territorial expansion motion again today. Intelligence suggests they're planning to absorb 3 more neutral systems. Elena smiled her practiced diplomatic smile, the one that had diffused 100 interstellar incidents. "Then we'll do what we always do. Present facts, appeal to reason, and find a compromise that everyone can live with." High Chancellor Vextar of the Krolek Empire rose from his elevated platform, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming like black steel. His mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was amusement. "Honored colleagues," his voice boomed through. "The translators, the Krolek Empire formally annexes the Tertius, Secundus, and Prima systems. These regions require proper management." A ripple of concern passed through the chamber, but it was the familiar kind of political theater everyone expected. The Aquarian delegates' tentacles writhed in mild protest. The crystalline Vorthan representative's form flickered with disapproval. But all eyes turned to the human delegation, as they always did when someone needed to play peacemaker. Elena stood gracefully, her voice calm and measured. "Honored Chancellor, while the Krolek Empire's administrative capabilities are well respected, perhaps we could discuss establishing joint protectorates instead. The affected systems have expressed concerns about maintaining their cultural autonomy." Vextar's mandibles clicked again, louder this time. "The humans speak of autonomy, while their own species spreads across the galaxy like a plague. How many worlds do you claim now, Ambassador? 50? 100? 47 colonial worlds and 12 research stations." Elena replied without missing a beat, her smile never wavering. "All established through peaceful negotiation or on previously uninhabited worlds. We believe in the principle of voluntary association." The session continued with the usual back and forth, each species playing their expected roles. The humans proposed compromises, the Kroleks dismissed them, other species made token protests, and eventually everyone would agree to form a subcommittee to study the issue further. It was a dance as old as the Council itself, and humanity had become the orchestra conductor, always ensuring the music played on without discord. Commander Chun's jaw tightened imperceptibly as he watched Elena navigate another attempt to paint. "Humanity is hypocritical." Dr. Kim's fingers paused over her tablet as she noted the increasing aggression in Krolek rhetoric, but both maintained their composure, as they had been trained to do. After all, humans were the reasonable ones, the patient ones, the species that could always be counted on to find a peaceful solution. The galaxy was watching, as it always was. During these sessions, billions of beings across thousands of worlds tuned in to see their representatives debate the future of interstellar civilization. And they saw exactly what they expected: humans being human, which was to say, frustratingly diplomatic and maddeningly reasonable. None of them suspected they were about to witness something that would fundamentally change how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Asterisk. The morning session had concluded with the usual non-committal resolutions when Elena's secure communicator vibrated against her wrist. The message was brief, encrypted, and sent her blood running cold. She excused herself from the diplomatic reception, finding Marcus and Sarah in the human delegation's private chamber. "New Eden Colony," she said simply, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus was on his feet instantly. "What's the situation?" Dr. Kim's face had already gone pale as she pulled up the classified feeds on her tablet. "Krolak battle cruisers. They've already started orbital bombardment. The colony's shields are failing." New Eden wasn't just another human settlement. It was home to 200,000 civilians, including the galaxy's largest pediatric medical research facility. Children from dozens of species received treatment there, their conditions too rare or complex for their homeworlds to handle. It was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a place where politics meant nothing and healing meant everything. "Casualties?" Marcus asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would be devastating. "Preliminary reports suggest the Children's Hospital took a direct hit in the first wave," Sarah's voice cracked. "They're targeting civilian infrastructure specifically. Water treatment, schools, the agricultural domes." Elena closed her eyes, feeling something fundamental shift inside her chest. For 15 years, she had been the voice of human diplomacy, the woman who found solutions when others saw only problems. She had swallowed insults, absorbed aggression, and turned the other cheek so many times that some species had begun to mistake human patience for human weakness. The afternoon session was already in progress when the human delegation returned to the chamber. Elena noticed that news of New Eden hadn't reached the other delegations yet. The Krolak Empire was still maintaining communication blackouts around their administrative actions. Chancellor Vex Tar was in the middle of a speech about the necessity of strong leadership when Elena's communicator chimed again. This time, it was a live feed from New Eden. The image showed the smoldering remains of the children's wing, tiny bodies being pulled from the rubble by rescue workers, who were themselves under fire from Krolak ground forces. Something snapped. Elena stood slowly, and for the first time in her diplomatic career, she didn't ask for permission to speak. Her movement was fluid, predatory, like an apex predator finally deciding to show its fangs. "Chancellor Vex Tar," her voice cut through his speech like a blade through silk. The translation matrix carried not just her words, but the suddenly dangerous undertone that made every being in the chamber turn to look at her. The Krolak Chancellor's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The human delegate will wait her turn to know. The single word hit the chamber like a physical force. Elena's posture had changed completely. Gone was the diplomatic slouch, the carefully practiced gestures of submission and cooperation. She stood like a soldier, like a predator, like something that had just decided it was done pretending to be harmless. Marcus and Sarah flanked her, and the change in them was equally dramatic. Marcus's hand had unconsciously moved to where his sidearm would be if he were in a combat zone. Sarah's normally gentle demeanor had hardened into something that looked disturbingly calculating. "You want to know how many worlds humanity claims, Chancellor?" Elena's smile was gone, replaced by an expression that made several nearby delegates instinctively lean away from her. "We claim every world where a human child lives. Every station where human blood has been spilled in the name of peace. Every colony that trusted us to protect them while they built something beautiful." The chamber had gone silent. Even the background hum of translation matrices seemed muted, as if the technology itself was holding its breath. "And right now," Elena continued, her voice dropping to a register that somehow carried perfectly throughout the massive space, "you are killing our children." For the first time in Galactic Council history, a human delegate had just dropped the mask of politeness. The galaxy was watching in real time as humanity stopped choosing to be diplomatic. And every species in the chamber suddenly remembered that humans came from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. The silence stretched for exactly 12 seconds before Chancellor Vex Tar's Mandibles began clicking in what the translation matrix identified as laughter. The human threatens us? Your species hasn't initiated military action in 3 decades. You file reports, hold committees, negotiate. We negotiate, Elena interrupted. And her voice had become something entirely different from the diplomatic tone the council knew, because we choose to. Choice, Chancellor, is not the same as capability. Marcus stepped forward, and the movement was so precisely controlled, so economically lethal, that the Aquarian delegate's tentacles involuntarily recoiled. 47 colonial worlds, he said conversationally. What my colleague didn't mention is that humans established those colonies on worlds that other species declared uninhabitable. F worlds. Poison atmospheres, hostile fauna, seismic instability. Dr. Kim activated her tablet, projecting holographic displays above the delegation platform. Earth's classification in the Galactic Habitability Index, Class 12 hyperlethal. Gravity that would crush most species. Weather systems that regularly devastate continents. Predators in every ecosystem. Diseases that evolve faster than most civilizations. The displays showed Earth's surface. Tornadoes that could level cities. Earthquakes that split continents. Hurricanes that lasted for weeks. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for months. Then it showed humans not just surviving, but thriving in these conditions. We didn't develop diplomacy because we're naturally peaceful, Elena continued, her gaze fixed on Vextar with an intensity that made the massive Krolik shift uncomfortably. We developed diplomacy because we got very, very good at killing things, including each other. More holographic displays materialized, showing human military history with clinical precision. Wars that had raged for centuries. Weapons that could turn cities to glass. Conflicts so devastating that they had reshaped continents. The Terran-Martian War, Marcus said, pointing to a particularly brutal series of images. 47 years of total warfare between human colonies. Casualties, 847 million. We ended it not with treaties or negotiations, but because we developed weapons so horrific that both sides agreed to never use them again. The unification campaigns, Dr. Kim added. When we first achieved faster-than-light travel, we found 13 separate human colonial governments that had been isolated for generations. Most had developed significantly different cultures. Rather than fight 13 separate wars, we spent 40 years creating the diplomatic corps that stands before you today. Elena's smile returned, but it was nothing like her diplomatic expression. This smile belonged to something that had evolved alongside saber-toothed cats and ice ages. We learned to talk instead of fight because we were too good at fighting. It was inefficient. The chamber was absolutely silent now. The implications of what they were hearing was sinking in across dozens of species. Humanity's endless patience, their willingness to compromise, their famous reluctance to use force. It wasn't weakness. It was a conscious choice made by a species that understood exactly what the alternative looked like. You see, Elena continued, her voice now carrying across the chamber without amplification, every other species we've encountered developed diplomacy because they needed protection from stronger neighbors. Humans developed diplomacy to protect everyone else from us. Chancellor Vextar's chitinous form had gone very still. The clicking of his mandibles had stopped entirely. For 30 years, we've been very good at being what you needed us to be. The reasonable ones, the compromise seekers, the species that would rather talk than fight. Elena paused, and when she spoke again, her words carried the weight of an entire civilization that had just decided it was done pretending. But you just killed our children, Chancellor, and children are where our patience ends. Marcus was already reaching for his communicator. New Eden Defense Fleet. This is Commander Chun. Authorization Omega 77. You are weapons-free on all Krolak military targets. Rules of engagement are ... flexible. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For the first time in 3 decades, humanity had just authorized its military to stop holding back, and every species in the galaxy was watching it happen live. Asterisk, the holographic displays above the human delegation shifted, no longer showing historical data, but real-time tactical feeds. What had been peaceful colonial ships around New Eden were transforming before the Council's eyes. Farming vessels deployed military-grade defensive systems. Research stations revealed hidden weapon platforms. Transport ships reconfigured into combat formations with a precision that spoke of thousands of hours of secret drilling. "Impossible," whispered the Vorthan representative, their crystalline form flickering rapidly with agitation. "Our intelligence indicated minimal human military presence in that system." Dr. Kim's expression had become coldly clinical. "Intelligence assumes military assets look like military assets. We've had 3 decades to learn that assumption is limiting." She gestured to the displays. "Every human civilian ship is built with dual-purpose capabilities. Every colony has defensive infrastructure that masquerades as civilian infrastructure. Every research station doubles as a forward operating base." Chancellor Vextar's great bulk shifted uneasily as he watched his battlecruisers suddenly find themselves facing opposition that shouldn't exist. Deception. Violation of demilitarization treaties. Read the fine print. Elena interrupted, her voice carrying an edge that made several delegates unconsciously lean away. Article 7, subsection 3. Civilian infrastructure may incorporate reasonable defensive measures against natural disasters and wildlife threats. Tell me, Chancellor, have you ever seen what a Category 5 hurricane looks like? What about a grizzly bear? Marcus pulled up new tactical displays. Standard human farming equipment is rated to survive 200 mph and can operate in temperatures ranging from -40 to +60 Celsius. A construction mech designed to clear forests of Earth-class trees can flip a Krolak battle. Tank like a toy. The feeds from New Eden showed exactly that happening. What appeared to be civilian construction equipment was systematically dismantling Krolak ground forces with casual efficiency. Farming mechs designed to harvest trees were using Krolak vehicles for target practice. The children's hospital you destroyed, Elena continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the massive chamber, was built to withstand seismic events that would level most galactic cities. The fact that your orbital bombardment damaged it at all is actually impressive. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the tactical displays. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace around New Eden, not the sleek, obvious warships other species favored, but the utilitarian vessels that comprised humanity's merchant marine. Except now they were revealing their true nature. The Marcus Aurelius, Marcus said, indicating a vessel that looked like a standard cargo hauler. Capacity: 50,000 tons of trade goods, or 200 heavy fighters, or 1 planetary assault regiment. The ship's AI is named Prudence. She's very good at logistics. More ships arrived, mining vessels that deployed swarms of autonomous fighters, hospital ships that doubled as command and control platforms, even scientific survey vessels that somehow managed to carry enough firepower to sterilize continents. "You see," Elena said, her gaze never leaving Vextar's suddenly very worried compound eyes. "Humans are apex predators. Do you know what that means, Chancellor?" The Krolak leader's mandibles had begun clicking again, but now it sounded nervous rather than amused. "It means we don't have natural enemies. Every other species in this chamber evolved to run from something stronger, faster, deadlier. You developed civilization to protect yourselves from the things that hunted you." Elena's smile had become something truly terrifying. Humans developed civilization because we were the things that hunted everything else. The tactical displays showed Krolek forces in full retreat from New Eden. What had begun as a casual planetary assault had turned into a rout in less than 20 minutes. The politeness, the compromise-seeking, the endless patience, that's not our nature, Chancellor. That's us choosing to be better than our nature. But you just made that choice ... difficult. Dr. Kim highlighted new data streams. Real-time casualty. Reports from New Eden. 14,847 dead civilians. 3,205 of them children, including 57 young patients from 17 different species who were receiving treatment for terminal illnesses. Elena stood perfectly still for a moment, and in that stillness, every being in the chamber could sense something vast and terrible shifting. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of a species that had just remembered what it was capable of. You want to see what humans look like when we stop being polite, Chancellor? You're about to get a very thorough education. The galaxy was still watching, and for the first time in 30 years, they were seeing humanity without its diplomatic mask. Asterisk. The evacuation of New Eden took 47 minutes. Human ships materialized from hyperspace with mathematical precision, their holds opening to receive fleeing civilians with an efficiency that spoke of countless drills and preparations. They, wounded, were transferred to hospital ships that had somehow appeared at exactly the right coordinates. The dead were gathered by vessels that served as both transport and memorial, their crews moving with the respectful precision of a species that understood loss. Chancellor Vextar watched the displays in growing unease. His own fleet, caught completely off guard by humanity's response, had managed to retreat to the edge of the system. But they hadn't been pursued. The humans had simply ... contained them, like a scientist isolating a dangerous specimen. "This is over," Vextar announced, his mandibles clicking with forced confidence. "The Krolek Empire withdraws from this system. We will discuss reparations through proper diplomatic channels." "No." Elena's voice cut through his statement like a blade through carapace. "You don't get to declare this over, Chancellor. You opened the door. You don't get to choose when it closes." The holographic displays shifted again, now showing the broader galactic map. Red indicators began appearing throughout Krolek's space human vessels, dropping out of hyperspace at mining operations, trade stations, even the outer edges of core Krolek systems. 47 colonial worlds, Marcus said conversationally. What we didn't mention is that human civilization spans approximately 847 star systems if you count research outposts, mining operations, and deep space installations. We've been very good at being ... unobtrusive. Dr. Kim pulled up new data. Standard human merchant fleet numbers approximately 12,000 vessels. Military vessels in active service, 847. Reserve fleet vessels in civilian configuration, 7,439. Total combat-capable hulls, 8,286. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. For 3 decades, the galaxy had assumed humanity maintained a minimal military presence. They had been catastrophically wrong. "You see," Elena continued, her voice carrying across the chamber with quiet authority, "when your species evolved on a death world, you learned to be prepared for everything. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, gamma-ray bursts, planetary ice ages. You build redundancy into every system. You prepare for threats that haven't manifested yet." The tactical displays showed human vessels taking positions throughout the galaxy with clockwork precision. They weren't attacking, weren't threatening. They were simply ... there, in exactly the right positions to control every major shipping lane, communication relay, and resource extraction operation in known space. The beautiful thing about being underestimated, Marcus added, is that people don't bother to watch what you're actually doing. They see human ships and assume they're carrying grain or medical supplies or cultural exchange students. They don't realize they're looking at a distributed military network that's been 30 years in the making. Chancellor Vextar's great bulk sagged as the implications became clear. You've been preparing for war this entire time. No, Elena corrected gently. We've been preparing for the day someone would make war inevitable. There's a difference. The chamber erupted in panicked communications as delegates realized what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a response to the New Eden attack. This was the revelation of a carefully constructed strategic position that had been decades in the making. Every diplomatic compromise we accepted, Dr. Kim explained, was calculated to position our assets advantageously. Every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, every scientific collaboration, all of it designed to give us exactly the strategic depth we needed when someone finally forced our hand. Elena surveyed the chamber one final time, her gaze lingering on each delegation. For 30 years, we've been the species that sought compromise because we believed the galaxy was better when conflicts were resolved peacefully. We still believe that, but we also understand that peace is only possible when those who would break it face consequences. The holographic displays showed the final positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. Not conquered, not occupied, simply present. A network of power that could strangle galactic civilization in its sleep, but chose not to. This is your new reality, Elena announced. Humanity is done pretending to be weak. We're done absorbing aggression in the name of peace. We're done being the species that everyone can push around because we're too polite to push back. She paused, and her next words carried the weight of a fundamental shift in galactic power. We're still willing to talk. We're still willing to compromise. We're still committed to peaceful resolution of conflicts. But from now on, everyone needs to understand that these are choices we make, not limitations we live with. The galaxy was watching, and what they saw was the end of one era and the beginning of another, an era where humanity's politeness came with the implicit understanding that it was a gift that could be withdrawn. Chancellor Vextar looked at the tactical displays one more time, then at Elena's calm, controlled expression, and finally understood what the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to realize. They had never been negotiating with diplomats. They had been negotiating with predators who had chosen to be civilized. And that choice was no longer guaranteed. Asterisk.